Hey fam, happy Thursday, August 5th. Only one more day to the weekend. Hang in there. We're almost there. Let's take a look at the 3 stories that matter today and how to make them actionable. Our bronze medal goes to one Ontario landlord filing an eviction notice over tenants' vaccinated guests. And if you're wondering how this gets more soulless and terrible than just making someone homeless in the middle of a global pandemic, let's click in and see what's going on. So this is Brenda DeVitt, a 49-year-old who was recently displaced by a tornado that touched down last month. As if it's not terrible enough that she's getting attacked by the collapse of climate, she's now having to be attacked by landlords. I just feel so bad for her. Just kind of reading through the story, you see that she's been in touch with these individuals. She's talked about this. She's talked about having guests and whatnot. She thought everything was fine, and then surprise, surprise, she gets evicted. This is what landlords love to do. They love to attack people, work within the gray areas, and work outside of unspoken, unwritten rules. So kind of how to make this actionable, I think. Always get everything in writing whenever you talk to a landlord, but also share that story as much as you can with as many people as you can. I think it's really a good opportunity to stoke the rage and stoke awareness for how shit landlords are and how terrible they can be and the power and privilege they wield over us. And then if you yourself or if the people you're talking to get even more enraged, always recommend tenant unions. They're the apes that together make us strong people. They work together to not just make sure that that tenancy might be restored and she won't be kicked out of the unit, but at the same time maybe she'll get compensation even if she is kicked out. So they do a lot of really good work that way, and then also kind of work to help with bylaws and fighting against bad laws in our system that allow people to be evicted for terrible reasons. So definitely recommend sharing this. Definitely recommend signing up for a tenant union. For our silver story of the day, this goes to the subreddit Collapse. This is talking about how supply chains across the world are really starting to falter, and it's kind of exciting, kind of terrible, mostly exciting. This individual is talking about how they work in the supply chain logistics for grocery stores. They've seen it get harder and harder to keep shelves full, and they've recently seen the workforce, up to 75% of the workforce, call in sick. And this is kind of indicative that we're going to be facing some real supply chain issues, which is good for us, the workers, super terrible for the 1%. We also have other people confirm the stories here, talking about how we've gotten 2 price increases on cardboard and corrugates in the past 6 months. We've exhausted all the pallet suppliers in the area. Other people talk about how they've stopped being able to find or being able to build patio furniture because the supplies aren't there. Other people talk about they can't find parts for their car, can't find parts for their motorbike. It's just all over the place. Like, I was in Canadian Tire the other day trying to find stuff. Not only could I not find anything when I found the poor staff, the heroes on the front lines, to ask like when I might be able to get this stuff, they have no idea when it's coming in, and they also have no idea if it comes in, if management will even tell them, because everyone's so exhausted. We're just kind of falling down all over the place. It's you hate to see it for the workers themselves. That's absolutely brutal. But for the 1% and people are profiting off of this has to be straining their ecosystem, and I think that's good for the workers in general. We saw just before COVID, the NDP, the BC NDP, the most left-wing government in Canada, sent in the cops to Wet'suwet'en to take the pipelines to enforce resource extraction. And this set off alarm bells across the country. People rallied together, and we kind of came out and blocked off some railways and supply chains, and that really forced the government to respond. It made the press, it made the news everywhere, and it was a relatively small group of people. And if that's the result of people working together against the system for such a small number of people for a relatively isolated incident, I think as we see the government try to force austerity and other measures they've hinted at to recover from the whole COVID situation, I think that it's a good sign that we the people are in a good position to fight back. And one of the things that was kind of good about this too is there's a podcast, Working People, with Richard Wolff was the featured guest, and it was a really good episode. I really highly recommend it. Order Takers No More with Richard Wolff. In this episode, they talk about how the current terrain of work and what the working class can do and what we need to do to build a better politics. And I think it's a really exciting episode. Everything with Richard Wolff is really good and I highly recommend. But it's just kind of interesting take at how we're not really the workers are able to just walk off the job because they're so sick of the system. And it's kind of an informal general strike in a lot of sense, where people will say, I'm just done with this, and they'll walk off. People are intentionally working slow. People are intentionally calling in sick. And these are tactics that we typically want to organize so we can focus the effort and make clear demands. But it's good to see people kind of start to exert their power and be aware of these tools we have at our disposal at our disposal to fight against the 1%. So that's kind of dope. So to make this actionable, I think the easiest thing is probably to just be mindful of yourself and your own needs first. Let's take care of you. So if try to maybe just have a stock of like food on hand just in case stuff goes bad. So even though you've got some emergency supplies, and at the same time, just making sure that you're kind of buying stuff in advance. So if you think you might need parts or something to replace or something important, maybe order it a few weeks in advance so you have it available. Like I went to Canadian Tire, they couldn't even give me an ETA. So try to have it, like I'd say 2 or 3 weeks in advance if it's something you know you're going to need. And then also take a look at the groups who organized protests last time when it comes to Wet'suwet'en, or just in general in your area if there wasn't people involved there that were focused on the supply chain. And just try to reach out and find out what actions are upcoming so that way you're a comrade, and if there is future supply chain targeting in terms of strikes and whatnot, blockades, you're already in with the group, so you're able to quickly join those efforts. And then for our gold medal story of the day, this is going to go to Andrea Horwath and the Ontario NDP. Oh, I hate them. So yesterday she said this.
Unlike Mr. Del Duca, I don't take lightly people's charter rights. And so that's why what we're saying is rapid tests or your vaccination status. And
this was her defending the saying that she does not support mandatory vaccines. And this set off a lot of people. And I understand it's a fair argument to say the average person doesn't care. The average person's out there playing Fortnite. But for those of us on the front line, and those of us who are active in organizing and whatnot, this matters to us. And this is a way to keep people alive. It is important that we mandate vaccines. So for her to do this is such a slap in the face and such a pivot to the right of the Liberal Party that it made so many people mad. I personally am so enraged by this. I am right now thinking I'll never do anything for the NDP again. I've donated money, I've campaigned, I've knocked doors, I've made calls. I'm never doing anything for them again. Fuck the NDP. When you look at what they've done in BC, I just talked about Wet'suwet'en. You look at what they did in Alberta, and now they're aspiring to be a government in Ontario, and this is how they perform when they get a sniff of power. Fuck the NDP. You cannot trust them at all. I will say there are good people like Matthew Green and Leah Gazon, and even Avi Lewis, who do good stuff, and maybe it's worth it to still work with them and pick up skills so you can use it outside of electoral politics. But I personally don't think I can ever do that stuff again. I'm just so angered by, I just have no faith that they can ever truly fight power. They have no interest in it. So I'm done with them. I'll vote for them to keep out the Liberals and the Conservatives, but fuck the NDP. There's a lot of good takes on this, a lot of funny takes. The Beaverton, always so good. They've got a lot of good comrades on the staff. So if you go there, make sure to click on an ad or two just to give them money. But anyway, Andrea Horwath, if you click an ad, it takes a while to load, heads up. They made fun of her, saying Andrea Horwath announced his bold plan to never ever become premier. There was a lot of really good digs at her. But let's take a look at how she was feeling today.
Hello, Ontario. I've always been a strong advocate for doing everything we can to ensure every Ontarian is vaccinated. This is especially critical in healthcare and education. I fully support mandatory vaccination in healthcare and education based on science and public health priorities. I should have made that position clearer much earlier in support of the health and safety of the most vulnerable among us: seniors, people with disabilities, people who are sick, and children who can't yet get their vaccines. I also believe we need to reach out to people, find out what their barrier is, and address it. Whether that's paid time off for a gig worker or taking the vaccine directly to the home.
The NDP is so bad. If they cared about reaching out to people, you think they would reach out to their own supporters before they say they're not going to fight for vaccines. It's just beyond disgusting. So when it comes to this story, I think it's a really good highlight of where the NDP's head's at. There are good individuals within it. There's good people running for the NDP at various levels. I think if you have to go for a party, this is the way to do it. But I think it highlights that we cannot trust anyone else to save us. We have to save us. And it's just an opportunity for us to take a look at the upcoming election, which is going to be focusing a lot of attention, maybe more than ever, on the politics of this country. And I think it's good to kind of just note that this is the most left-wing government in Ontario. Most left-wing party in Ontario. Serious party. And this is how they perform. It is a clown show. And I think that it's a good opportunity for us to say we the people need to start working together in a lot more ways. I think like we've seen mutual aid groups come out, we've seen caring groups, we've seen give nothing, pay nothing groups pop up, and all these have been led by individuals. It's not been led by politicians or political groups. It's individuals who are working within their communities to make it the safest, freest space possible. And I think we need to turn more towards direct action and mutual aid, away from the NDP and political groups. I'll still say vote for the NDP to keep out the Liberals and the Conservatives, but like just be mindful of your time because it's such a valuable, precious thing. Like look at like how do you get 35% polling against Doug Ford? Doug Ford's still 38%. It's because people can just read that you're shit and that you don't actually care and aren't going to make a difference, because all they do is they go in front of a camera and they talk for 10 minutes. They don't spend their time fighting for people, talking to people, or they never would have made such a stupid statement. Yeah, so I'm just going to say, join the Communist Party. I signed up for the Communist Party. Let's see what happens. Let's see what it's about. I'm done with pretending the richest people, because the only people running, they have privilege of time, they have privilege of money. There's so many different levels of excess and privilege they wrap themselves with that none of us have access to, that we cannot trust them to represent our interests. The class interests are always going to prevail. So I think it's a good indicator for us of how the NDP will always perform. So I think with that said, I'm going to send you love and solidarity. I'll see you tomorrow for some other news. Hopefully we'll try to keep it a little bit better, because we're coming into the weekend. We always want to end optimistic on the weekend. So yeah, love and solidarity. Have yourself a good day. Peace.
I don't think the king woke up one morning, said all the people should be better paid. No, things were bad, but things got changed.